There are other poisons. There are many different kinds, and we're not going to go into all those other kinds. Usually these, again, we do not suspect poison. Not in this country. Drugs, yes. Poisons, not. Poisons are not common in this country. We want to kill people, we usually use a gun. But anyway, we only do if there is some kind of symptom. If there's some indication that the person that the person took poison, let's say burning around the mouth, or the person said, I feel like my stomach is on fire before he died, then there are some signs of the poison. Or he might have gone to the hospital and there were some signs that they were able to tell that it was poison. If there are signs of poison, then we gotta have the forensic toxicologist to swing into action and say, hey, what were the symptoms? Which kind of poison was that? Okay, so it was these kinds of poison. We have specific tests for these poisons. Let's try them. Here's a case, the Curley case. Joanne and Bobby Curley. Okay, as the case continues, I want to tell you now, his name really was Curley. Okay, remember that. It really was. Okay, they were married for 13 months, not that much. Well, I guess some people might consider it a lot, but anyway, it wasn't that much in Pennsylvania. And Bobby Curley ended up in the hospital. He was not well. A urine test showed he had thallium. That's a poison in his system. You might remember this as one of these. Yep, that's the thallium. He had thallium in his system. So, and it was serious. He was in a really serious condition. And this was a rat poison. This was, I think, in the 90s. I don't remember when the case was. It wasn't in the 80s. But it was a rat poison, but it was outlawed, so it wasn't sold. But anyway, thallium was in his system, and that was really killing him. Before they could, and so now once they found it was thallium, finally they were able to treat it, but too late. He fell into a coma, and they really didn't know if they were able to treat it at that point. So his wife Joanne said, "Look, if you can't do it, you can't. Let's take him off life support," and they did, and that was the end of Bobby Curley. Now the question is, where did this thallium come from? How did he get poisoned with thallium? I mean, you and I don't come. Well, you, I should say, don't come into contact with thallium that often, right? Ordinary people don't. So the fact was, he was working in a chemistry laboratory. Okay. That sounds like a good source of thallium. He wasn't a chemist, he was an electrician, but nevertheless he was working in or near chemistry laboratories. However, that laboratory has many, and I would say the vast majority of them, the majority of the laboratories, they have good safety procedures. You go to work in a chemistry laboratory, you'll know that they're all over safety procedures. What they have in the comics, where you have the guy going to the chemistry laboratory in a high school chemistry laboratory, putting one beaker into another, and the thing goes boom. That doesn't happen. The safety procedures are in place. These things pretty much never happen. Anyway, doesn't mean things don't go boom, but certainly not the level. They go boom when we know and we want them to go boom. Anyway. Getting back to the point, so laboratory, as with most laboratory, they had good safety procedures. Goggles, face masks, closed containers, you name it, good safety procedures. Even the chemists had no thallium whatsoever in their system. Bobby Curley did not have thallium in his system from the chemistry laboratory. If so, where did it come from? And they realized that Joanne had just made him sign this life insurance policy where she would get $300,000 out of it. Okay, yes, this makes taking him off life support a very easy decision on her part. Okay, married 13 months, life insurance policy that she's getting a lot of money off of. Okay, she is a person of interest. We are suspicious of him. So let's check out what's going on in his home. Maybe she actually poisoned him. His thermos where he drank from had traces of thallium. Okay, that didn't come from the lab. That came from home. So, where is he getting it from? Is she poisoning her? Is she poisoning him? Okay, they tested his hair. There was 12.5 centimeters. That's about 12 months. Remember, he was married for 13 months? 12 months of information. And over those 12 months, he had been receiving more and more thallium. Okay, now we see where the finger of guilt is pointing. 12 months, they married 13 months, 12 months of poisoning. And whenever they found out that he ingested the thallium based on his hair, because again, you can trace it through time. They can see, let's say, the first 3 weeks, he had a little bit of thallium. Then, let's say he was gone on a business trip for a week. They say, hey, wait, no thallium now. And then he came back from his business trip, and then we also have some more thallium. They realized whenever he had thallium, the hair said he had been ingesting thallium, Joanne was with him, or Joanne had access to him. So they confronted her, and she confessed. She had poisoned him. After he signed his life, look, I mean, it's pretty much as old as life insurance policies. Get your spouse to sign a life insurance policy, then bump them off. Well, anyway, she had actually found some old rat poison, illegal to make it at that point. She found some old rat poison. She's been steadily poisoning him more and more. And he was, a little bit didn't get to him. She's getting more. And as time continues, she's getting more and more and more. Until finally she killed him with this thallium. So she had been caught because of Bobby's hair. Okay. I said his name was Curley. It really is. Okay? Even though it was hair, it really was Curley. So, that's the Curley case. A very interesting case that we use hair, and the forensic toxicologist found the criminal. So, the thing is that we can find that there's blood, that there's drugs or alcohol in the system. We mentioned blood alcohol earlier in a different lecture. We know a lot about blood alcohol levels, what the blood alcohol level is to impair a person for driving. We know that. That's the BAC of 0.08. That's what's established. Fine. What about drugs? There are a whole bunch of different drugs, and they're in tiny amounts. We don't have an easy breath test for drugs necessarily. We don't, pretty much. So, I mean, alcohol gets into the lungs, but drugs don't always get into the lungs. I mean, I suppose marijuana gets into the lungs if you smoke it, but how does heroin get to the lungs? Not necessarily enough to test. So we don't have easy ways of testing for them. We can take their blood. Again, we mentioned that they can be tested for, but we don't really have legal levels of how impaired the person is on drugs so that they can't operate a machinery or they can't drive. So we want to know how impaired the person is. And this also depends on what other fluids are found in the person's body. So, and sometimes we want to know, was the person on drugs, were they able to escape, let's say, or maybe the person who was able to escape, but they stayed there anyway. So in which case, maybe it sounds like they were willingly taking the drugs. Otherwise, they would have escaped. Or were they unable to escape due to the level of drugs in their system? In which case, further crimes were actually not their fault. Many possibilities that we can learn, based on how much drugs were in the system, the amount of drugs in the system, and mainly how impaired the person was when they took the drugs. So we can't just say we don't really have a level of, 0.08 blood alcohol content, or this concentration of marijuana in the blood will be too much to drive a car. We don't have these levels. We can only estimate it. Again, we have decent estimations, but what we really want to see is how impaired they actually are. If the drugs impair them, then they should know it, and they should stop operating the machinery or stop driving. So how impaired how do we relate impairment to the amount of drugs? There are many different factors. Different ages are different, are different affected by drugs differently. Physical conditions, the person who's very healthy might not be affected as much. Sometimes they have alcohol together with the drugs that make it synergistic. That means when you combine the two, they have more of an effect of each one added. They multiply each other, or they cause even more of an effect than just one.